African-American families were here from the very beginning. They're very much a part of this story of the early New England family. And the Jacksons allow us to see how families faced separation, changes in legal status, re-enslavement, and also having members of your own family in different levels of servitude. So within the Jackson family, you have people who are enslaved, you have people who are free, and you have people who are indentured servants. From the moment of Joan's birth in early Connecticut in the 1670s, the law of property dominated her legal status in life.
A child would follow the status of the mother. This was particularly important for enslaved mothers. So regardless of who the father of the child was, whether the father was enslaved or the father was a free black man or the father was a white man, possibly the owner of that woman, that child would be enslaved. And so a law like that was meant to abolish any challenge to the ownership of that offspring of that woman.
Enslaved people were treated as a commodity, and they understood themselves and were raised to understand that complexity. One of the things that I found was that enslaved people could care less about how much they cost, how much they were worth. They really just wanted to either remain with a loved one or not to be purchased by a particular person. And these are all ways that they expressed their soul values. And I came up with this term to think and acknowledge that enslaved people had a much different notion of the commodification of their bodies that we see from the outside, that we as scholars see in the records, and that we see planters writing about in their own diaries and letters.
When I first encountered the diary of Joshua Hempstead, I did not know that he was a slave owner. And I was interested in doing a very close study of one New England family. Getting into the diary, which is more than 700 pages long, more than 47 years, a name kept popping up, and the name was Adam. And so through Adam, the eldest son of John and Joan Jackson, that led me to the wider story. The Jacksons are so important because we could see how the family members, each family member tried to keep the family together, had a true sense of family. When Joan secured her freedom, she had to leave her 2 children behind in slavery. Many, many years later, there's court testimony by an Englishman describing how Joan would go back and forth between the 2 households to, quote, nurse her children. Now, when Joan is taken to the Beebs and re-enslaved, it's really at this point that John Jackson emerges as a great American hero. In John Jackson, you see a man, a father, a husband, who's claiming the rights that were taken from him and using any means available to him, stealing away, which is what the English authorities would have called it, his wife and children, was an audacious act. And he ran the risk of being accused of burglary, breaking and entering. As a freedman, the punishments could be very severe. John Jackson's tenacity in trying to get his family reunited within the constraints that he faced is really extraordinary. In his lawsuit in Massachusetts, he won back his wife's freedom and his son's freedom. In spite of all of the obstacles against them, they continue to fight, and in many ways they prevail in terms of holding their family together, keeping the siblings with a sense of family, and their children went on to live on into the 18th century. And that was their legacy that they left, John and Joan.